Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Swati Vaidya from SNDT Women's University, Mumbai's Srimati B.M. Ruya Girls College, Mumbai. Today I'm going to discuss with you a unit on economic participation of women in India. Let's understand the objectives of this unit. We want to make you students familiar with the concept of economic participation of women. We want to develop deeper understanding on constituents of economic participation of women. We also want to contextualize common indicators of economic participation and gender with gender development. We want to enable students clear understanding of gender gap in economic activity. Now let's look at the introduction of this unit. According to Hailong Hu, who is the director of the UNDP's Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific, it is said that even in a region that has made such remarkable progress, pockets of exclusion continue to prevent millions of people from fulfilling their true potential. This is exactly the reason why one needs to explore if women in India are able to participate in the economy, realizing their true potential. Are they able to realize their true potential? What do you think? Let's discuss about it from the point of view of the understanding of women's participation in India. According to a recent report by the International Labour Organization, the ILO, compared to other countries in Asia, India has one of the lowest rates of women's labour force participation. Moreover, even this low rate of labour force participation seems to be declining. The National Sample Survey found that while in 1999-2000, 25.9% of all women worked, by 2011-12, this portion had dropped to only 21.9%. This is in stark contrast to worldwide trends. Of the 185 nations that are part of the ILO database, since the 1990s, 114 countries have recorded an increase in the portion of women in the workforce, and only 41 countries recorded decline, and in that, sadly, India has been leading the pack. It is therefore necessary, don't you think, to understand about economic participation of women in its conceptual diversity as well as empirical evidence. We shall discuss therefore important indicators of economic participation and look into each of them to understand the nature and extent of economic participation of women in India. There will be brief discussion of conceptual explanation of the selected indicators of economic participation. Empirical data shall be presented in tables. Using basic percentage methods, students shall be able to assisted to learn about understanding the empirical evidence, analyzing it about women's economic participation in India. Now let's look at important indicators of economic participation. You can see there are many and diverse ways of indicating economic participation of the persons. Economic participation refers to opportunities available to the person to be able to contribute to the growth of income and output in economy. It must be noted that opportunities available to a person depends on his or her capabilities, capacities, as well as freedom he or she enjoys to assert the choice of being able to contribute in the economy. This is the beginning point of reference, that is, to have freedom to participate in the economy, where there is a gendered experience. That discussion on economic participation of women is taking place. Employment, education, access to and ownership of land and property are gendered experiences. In this particular unit, the indicators of employment, education are looked at in the gendered perspective. We are going to discuss issues of access to land, property. These have been discussed briefly in the Unit 16 on women's access to community resources. Now we are going to discuss concepts and indicators of labor force participation. This section shall elaborate on the diversity of selected indicators to enable students a decent idea of economic participation of women in India. Following indicators of economic participation are covered. Indicators of labor force, distribution of men and women in total population, the labor force participation rate, worker population ratio, unemployment rate. Then we have indicators of gender and human development. We are going to understand these indices clearly. In order that, it is necessary to keep in mind definitions of two basic concepts of measurement of employment status in India. The first way of measuring employment status in India is the UPS or Usual Principal Status approach. I will be referring to it as UPS approach. It refers to the major time criterion based on the 365 days it is used to determine the activity pursued by a person under the usual principal status approach. Accordingly, the major time spent by a person, about 183 days or more, is used to determine whether the person is in the labor force or out of labor force. A person found unemployed under this approach reflects the chronic unemployment. Second approach to determine the level of employment is the usual principal status, usual principal and subsidiary status approach, which is also called the UPSS approach. The other important approach to measure the labor force parameters is the usual principal and subsidiary status approach, UPSS. This approach is a hybrid. It takes into consideration both the major time criterion and shorter time period, that is 30 days or more in any economic activity. Thus, a person who has worked even for 30 days or more in any economic activity during the reference period of last 12 months is considered as employed under this approach. Now, let's look at indicators of labor force. It is apparent to begin with basic population data for men and women in India as given by Census of India 2011, the latest one available in our country. First is the distribution of men and women in total population. You may refer to table 1. Total distribution of population age 15 to 19. This table is kind of self-explanatory. Population of women in India is less than men. This is in contrast with most developed as well as developing countries, where more women live than men. This disparity is the beginning of any discussion on economic participation of women in India. Now, we are going to look at second indicator, which is labor force participation rate, or popularly known as the LFPR. LFPR is defined as the number of persons in the labor force per 1,000 persons. Refer to Table 1 again. LFPR based on UPS and UPSS approach for persons aged 15 years and above, and the data is in terms of percentages. While comparing the results of UPSS approach with UPS approach, it may be seen that for male category, the LFPR increased by 1.3% only under the UPSS approach. However, in case of females, the LFPR has increased significantly by 5.3% under the UPSS approach as compared to UPS approach at all India level. What does it mean? It implies that many females, many women who were primarily not a part of labor force based on major time criterion, although had worked for few months during the peak season or at the time of availability of work at their place. Hence, they are covered under UPSS approach. We are now going to look at the third indicator, namely worker population ratio. Worker population ratio is defined as number of persons employed per 1,000 persons. The WPR signifies the proportion of workers or employed persons in the total population for the specific age group. All the labor force related parameters are derived for the persons aged 15 years and above. The worker population ratio is estimated to be 59.9% at all India level based on usual principal status approach, or in other words, about 50% of persons aged 15 years and above are employed at all India level based on major time criterion approach. In case of gender-wise classification of results, it becomes 71% of males and 23.8% of females aged 15 years and above are employed at all India level based on the UPS approach. Please note, the numbers for men and women vary considerably. Now let's look at the fourth indicator, namely unemployment rate. All these rates, please note, are based on census 2011. The unemployment rate based on usual principal status approach is estimated to be 4.9% at all India level, or in other words, about 5% of the persons who were available for work during the reference period could not find work and they remain unemployed. The unemployment rate in case of women is almost double as compared to male counterparts. The unemployment rate for male category is 4.1%, whereas for female category it is 7.7% at all India level based on UPS approach. Results at sectoral level under the usual principal status approach, the census 2000 survey reveals that in rural sector the unemployment rate is 4.7%, whereas in urban sector the same rate is 5.5% at all India level. In case of women in urban sector, unemployment rate is significantly high. It is at 12.4% at all India level under UPSS approach. The unemployment rate based on usual principal and subsidiary status, that is UPSS approach, is estimated to be 3.4% at all India level. In case of men, the unemployment rate is 2.9%, whereas for women it is 4.9%, which is 1.5 as compared to male category at all India level. Now we are going to look at the next section, which is called Dynamics of Gender, Education and Employment. It is important to keep in mind that apart from gender, the educational attainment influences a lot upon the kind of employment one can get. Again, we are going to look at a table from Census of India 2011. This table tells the story of dynamic relationship among gender, education and employment. This section is therefore discussing selected indicators on gender and human development. Let's look at the indicators of gender and human development. In order to get an idea of indicators of gender and human development, we shall look at few more tables. Clearly, this table reveals the casualness in the women's employment. Only 29.09% women aged 5 to 19 are and not attending educational institutions have been able to get status of main workers. Remember, these women between 5 to 19 years are not attending educational institutions. They are not learning, they are not studying, not going to college or even school for that matter. For the same category of men, that is 5 to 19, not attending educational institutions, the main worker percentage is 70.90%. This in a way indicates a gender discrimination in the labor market. Among the marginal workers too, it seems it's easier for men to find a job for more than 3 months, but less than 6 months of the year. Women, however, either have to accept employed for less than 3 months or remain as non-workers. Clearly, among the young persons in India who are not attending educational institution, it is easier for men, about 71% of them, to find employment than to women. Only 23% get the work. Following table again gives the story for persons aged 19 to 60 years, the typical working age group population, you know. As per the Census of India 2011, from this table, even among this category, one can see that it is not easy for women to find employment as it is for men in India. It will be also interesting to look into the distribution of unemployment across gender. We shall now look at the number of employed persons among different categories of employment, namely self-employment, wage or salary employment, contractual employment, and lastly the casual employment. This table again clearly brings out the casualness of women's employment in India. Not only that more women find it difficult to get any full-time employment, either wage or salary work or even self-employment or contractual work, they often report more unemployment than men. Even though many women end up working as casual laborers whenever they find work. This gender disparity needs to be looked at and intervened at to improve women's access to employment. This will have a far-reaching influence on overall access and participation of women which they can have in the economy. Till then, we have to accept the challenge. We are now going to look at Gender Development Index for India, which is also called the GDI. The GDI measures gender gaps in human development achievements by accounting for disparities between women and men in 3 basic dimensions of human development, namely health, knowledge, and living standards. It uses the same component indicators as in the GDI. The GDI is the ratio of the HDIs calculated separately for men and women using the same methodology as in the HDI. It is a direct measure of gender gap showing the female HDI as a percentage of the male HDI. The GDI is calculated for 160 countries. Countries are grouped into 5 groups based on the absolute deviation from gender parity in HDI values. This means that grouping takes equally into consideration gender groups favoring males as well as those favoring females. The GDI shows how much women are lagging behind their male counterparts and how much women need to catch up within each dimension of human development. It is useful for understanding the real gender gap in human development achievements and is informative to design policy tools to close the gap. There is a diagram now we need to look at. The following diagram illustrates the method of calculating GDI. It is used by UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme. This method is used in order to measure gender disparity in day-to-day lives of the people across the world. Diagram shows how is GDI calculated. Sources UNDP. I am going to illustrate the diagram briefly. Diagram illustrates the method of calculating GDI. It is clear that GDI takes into account the disparity between HDIs of men and women. The higher the disparity, the lower the GDI. India's GDI is 0.819 compared to the developing country average of 0.913. So, we are lagging behind. Closer look at another table to compare different indicators of GDI and HDI between India, who is ranked 131 in the year 2017, and Norway, who is ranked first in year 2017, shall be useful. It is to be noted that women in India complete half as many years of schooling on average as men and have less than half the share of men in the gross national income. It also ranks 125th of the 159 countries on the Gender Inequality Index on account of the prevalence of teenage mothers. It's not because promiscuity, dear, it is because the age at marriage actually in many rural as well as urban homes in India is much lower. Women get married and they get their first child even though they are not yet 20. And the low share of women in parliament, the low female labor force participation rate compared to men. These things have made India score pretty poorly on the Gender Development Index internationally. Look at the indicators of Norway. It clearly reveals the developmental gap as well as the gender gap in women's economic participation in India. We have learned in this unit a lot of tables and diagrams. So, I am requesting you to be little more careful when you deal with the diagrams as well as the tables. I am going to conclude this unit now. Discussion in this unit or the module was conceptual as well as empirical evidence based. It has brought out the salient characteristics of the meaning and different indicators of economic participation of women. Empirical data shows the rising, already wide enough gender gap in the economic participation of women in India. This knowledge should help any student of women's studies to gather factual as well as conceptual understanding of where women stand in Indian economy. It must be noted that this module has mainly looked into women as producers or part of the labor force. It has, however, not looked into women as consumers or managers. It will be interesting to know about it separately. I am thankful to you for continuing in this unit.